This is the Infinite Receiving podcast, helping conscious leaders tap into a wealth of abundance across all areas of your life and business. I'm Susie Ashworth, and I'll be sharing with you how you can upgrade your reality through quantum transformation, because you are ready for infinite receiving. Hello, you gorgeous human being. It is Susie Ashworth here, and you are listening to the Infinite Receiving podcast. And I have got a super interesting guest for you today. Her name is Francesca Oddie, and she is an astrologer extraordinaire. And so we are going to be getting down, do we say down and dirty or up and clean? I don't know. I don't know how we want to talk about it, but we're going to be pulling back the curtain on all things astrology. And what I really have been trying to not make this all about me, but because you specialize in relationship astrology, of course, I want to go into all of that with you. But before we start, hello.
Hi. I've got to be loud. Hello. How are you?
I am amazing. I'm curious. I think that whenever you kind of go right back to the beginning, with the benefit of hindsight, there are always clues that tell people exactly where they were going to be, almost like there were no surprises. And I'm genuinely curious about fate versus free will. But I'm curious, when you look back to the early years of your life, were there signs that this is the type of work that you would be doing?
I'm at home. It's my mum's birthday today, and I've just got back. And so, I'm sat on the floor with my computer. And there's this little ceramic thing, which I always talk about. And I've never even shown the internet. And I remember seeing this, Mum was dressing me. Oh, my God, dusty coins everywhere. When I was really little. And there's this thing that's got my birthday on it. And it's got how much I weighed. It's got my name. And it says Sagittarius. And the first time I saw it, I was like, what's this? And Mum was like, it's just this little thing. And I looked at the word Sagittarius, and I still remember this sort of out-of-body experience of feeling like I was in a vortex, and seeing this word Sagittarius and this overwhelming sensation, and just being like, well, it's not just a little, but it was 4 or 5 or 6, really, really young. And then going downstairs afterwards, feeling a little bit like, what was that? And so I think from then, it was always something that I was like, well, I need to know more about this. But I was really young.
That's quite incredible, particularly the visceral experience. So at what age did you really start to get into it?
Well, there's kind of stages. So when I was 15, when I first started having relationships, I got my little books. They're probably here as well, sun sign to sun sign. And then when I went to uni, I dated 2 Scorpios. And the second one, I was like, don't be Scorpio, don't be Scorpio. And he's like, Scorpio. And I was like, And he bought me the big book of birthdays when I was 19 that had all your traits depending on your birthday, which I still don't know how they did that. That's basically the combination of numerology and your star sign and the decan. And then I lived in Italy, and the Italians all know their rising sign. And so when I found out rising signs, that was 2008. And then in 2014, so all this time, I'm astrology geek, but I'd never thought to be an astrologer. And then 2014, I met a psychic who said, you've been an astrologer in all your past lives. You're going to do it in this life. And I was like, nah.
Now it makes sense. Can we talk about don't be a Scorpio, don't be a Scorpio, don't be a Scorpio? Was this because your first experience with a Scorpio didn't end up the way that you wanted it, or you recognised immediately that Scorpios were just not ever going to be a good match for you?
That's a great question. That is a great question, because I think I was so burnt at that point. And perhaps what I recognized was the depth, and I was just like, whoa, I don't want to like be burnt up again. I think that my instinct was, I can't be consumed again. I think that's what that instinct was,
Ooh.
like, don't take me to that depth again.
Because Scorpios like to go deep?
Yeah,
Or that was an
and
assumption?
because, well, no, Scorpios are deep, and my South Node is Scorpio, and my Saturn is Scorpio. So Scorpio takes me to a place of profound stagnation in a way, because the South Node is where we need to move out of our South Node. We all have a South Node, and we all have a North Node. And currently, as I speak, the South Node is in Scorpio and the North Node is in Taurus. So collectively, we've been working with getting away from scorpionic drama and excessive emotional responses and feeling possessive or any of the darker side of Scorpio. And we've been moving towards the North Node in Taurus of just being present and embodied and like just living in the moment and letting life be physical without the psychological depth. And so those Scorpio men held me in in the turmoil, and instead of letting me move towards the peace. But also they were catalysts.
This is very interesting because I met my first Scorpio man in February that I dated. So I was in a relationship for 15 years and I've been separated for just over 2 years. And I met this guy and I thought that he had real potential. But he actually started asking me about my star sign, and I shared with him. And then he shared that he was a Scorpio. And then he kept saying, typical Scorpio trait, Scorpio trait. So then I'm like, okay, I need to look at what this means. And actually with him, wanting to go very deep, very fast, like super intense. The first time like he stayed over at my house was like, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and get my kids now. He's like, do you want me to stay? I'm like, no. Like, it was such a bizarre question. Like, you're not moving in. Like, what's going on? And so now I'm slightly scared of Scorpios. But the thing is, I wonder,
are you my age?
I am 44.
Okay, carry on.
How old are you?
38.
Okay. My problem, in inverted commas, with astrology up until now is that I don't like anything that appears to put people in a box. So a lot of my kind of peer group, very into human design, which birth date, place of birth, time of birth, I don't love it because it feels very fixed. Whereas Gene Keys, which is actually an extension of human design and kind of like one of the babies of the I Ching, which is very astrology based and like DNA based, I love because it feels flexible and fluid. And there feels like there is space for evolution. And so this fated versus free will and how fixed things feel when I think about astrology, like the idea that I can never date a Scorpio, that doesn't feel great for me. Because I can't believe that they're all as intense as this guy. But maybe I just need to get over it. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you can date anyone for sure. Like, I think Scorpio is actually a really good match for me. It's just, and that's why I always go out with him. But
Okay.
it's about the evolution and where are we coming from? You know, like we're both 2 tomato seeds, 2 pots of soil. You know, healthy soil, eroded soil, sunshine, water, love, TLC, regular watering. Like it is a bit nature nurture, but ultimately you're dealing with seed and soil and the outer, things, the weather and what they called the word for when you're doing a science experiment, like the things that change. Anyway, the parameters, maybe.
Ecosystem.
There's a word for when you're doing an experiment, like the whatever. I forgot it. People will be shouting now, being like, Meh. Anyway, so that thing. And so there is two sides to it. There is free will, and but that's a bigger debate anyway. That's like the God debate. Is there free will, or is everything determined? Like, the astrology might show us a bit more about that, but ultimately, do you believe we are fated or not? And do you believe in God or not? And can you believe in a God who isn't omnipotent? Can you believe in a God who hasn't fated everything? Because if he's God, then obviously he's fated everything. You know, it's a big debate.
Well,
So
hang on a minute.
I think with astrology... Okay, yeah. Rewind.
Well, first of all, what do you believe? Fated or free will? Is everything fated or not?
So I did philosophy A-level, and I remember sitting there being like, well, surely God's just designed it so that we've got free will, but it's fated. So that's always been he just knows what we're going to do, is what I always like to think, but you can have within it. That's what I always thought, and I haven't developed my thinking since then.
I think it's super interesting that you use the word he. And so I'm also curious about your vision. Like, what does that mean? Are we talking man in the sky? Like, what does he mean for you when you talk about God?
God, universe, energy, source, cosmos, all the things. I think when I'm talking about the free will debate, I'm just 18 again. So I'm back with God, who was, but when I was 18, so I tend to skip sentences if I feel that it's obvious what I'm going to say. I just move on. But now, I'd be more likely to talk about, if I was on my podcast, I'd be like the universe or the cosmos or the energy or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what we call it.
I think this is interesting because I was listening to a couple of your episodes and I was listening to you speak about your desire for control, or the fact that you're not desire for control, how you like being in control. I was listening to some of your podcasts today, and the one for this week, you talked about control quite a bit. And that's interesting to me in this whole conversation about fate. And also, it's really interesting to me when I think about the work that I do. I really want to help people know their greatness. I really want them to know their own limitless potential and how what they think is holding them back is often just in their head. And there's this really weird dance between this idea that you can set very clear intention and really go for what it is that you desire, at the same time as needing, if you really want to keep your sanity, needing to be detached from the outcome, needing to be detached from that result, because outside of you, you are not in control of anything. So this whole idea of if I do this, then that will happen, I find is actually really destructive it certainly was destructive for me and for many people, because I can't decide what you're going to say. Like, I can have an idea of how I want the conversation to be. You can say bloody anything. So my idea that I can control the podcast or how many people listen is just ridiculous. So when we talk about if there is free will but everything's fated, what's the point of trying to be in control of anything?
Because that's part of it. If it's your destiny to take control, then it is. It's stepping into your potential. It's stepping into creating, making things happen instead of being a passive bystander and just allowing life to happen. Manifestation is will. Like, it's the magician card in the tarot. And yes, people, there's a lot of everything, allow and it will flow. But the magic that I understand from the occult understanding of what a magician is, it's like, it's that energy, it's that decision, it's the life force energy being put to task, or it doesn't have to be put to task. That's probably the wrong word, because like tasky. But it's about taking control of your identity, taking control of your business. If you don't take control, then it's just, I mean, I don't. It's very interesting, and I'm pleased you raised that, because I was kind of having this conversation with myself this morning, and I thought, God, I really want to talk about this, because I know that a lot of what I said this morning is there for debate, and the debates will happen because everybody always replies to me and whatever. But yeah, I'll stop talking.
It's this. I agree. Intention is everything in my world, where I am in my journey, and I respect that other people who have. If you speak to somebody like Michael Singer, and you look at the number of books that he has sold, with the message that actually, when you surrender to God's will, to the universe, what will be created through you is infinitely more exquisite, more powerful, more mind-blowing than what you can possibly conceive through your tiny little mind, which is only operating based on what you have seen or possibly experienced in your past life.
How are you distinguishing How are you distinguishing what's come through you as God's will and what's your mind?
So based on what he teaches in the surrender experiment, he stopped, it's the voice in your head. So what he talks about is the voice in your head that says, no, you don't want to do this, or yes, do that because if this, then that. And instead, really following intuition. Now, if you're going to ask me, how do you distinguish between intuition and the voice in your head? I don't have a specific answer outside of saying, for me, the development of my intuition, there's a difference between the voice that is often running and then an intuitive knowing. There's like a, do this, it feels like it's coming from a different place. Can I explain where the place is? No. But it's like in my journaling, for example, if I have a question and I will tap into what I call essence. The answers that come from essence are usually really simple. The answers that come from essence are usually something that I have not thought of myself. It's not the thing that I've been looping round and round and round and round in. It's like, do this. And then I'm like, oh. And then might want to argue with myself, but I don't really want to do that. And this is the reason why I don't want to do that. The essence answer is usually short, it's sweet, it's simple, it's pure. It's not coming from my logical mind.
Yeah, well, of course, I work with, I'm super intuitive in everything that I do, but I'm acting on my intuition. And acting on my intuition involves taking control of my life. That's maybe it's, the linguistics here perhaps are limited because it's hard to, because it's taking action. It's not about, and that's what I mean by wanting wise leaders and intuitive leaders. Let the natural leaders lead, because people who are leading from intuition aren't leading because they want power. They're leading because they understand what's best for people. And a lot of people are seemingly, maybe, I don't know, I don't understand why some people aren't tuned into themselves. And we want people to be empowered, to be tuned into themselves, to understand their voice so that they can make a participation in the collective, as opposed to what we've got at the minute is power-hungry people who are not intuitive and people who aren't asking questions. That's what we don't want. And I think there's going to be some kind of collective shift. It's kind of happening now.
I definitely think that it's happening now. And I think that what you are right is that it's the semantics with the linguistics, because ultimately there's light and shade in everything, right? So intention and being intentional feels different to being a control freak and needing to force and push. And I think that often when I hear the word control, the connotation is push and force, which is how I spent a lot of my life. And also I think that the energy that comes from, why are we forcing? Why are we pushing? I want this result in order to feel a certain way. And there's that, it's said in many, many ways, external things will never deal with internal problems. And I think that when you are able to know what's going on the inside, it changes how you approach going for things on the outside. And I think that it's just that light and shade, I suppose, that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I think
you don't want to be like fearful, rigid, like trying to control other people. It's more about being in control of our own life, which it comes through intuition, is being able, like, in the flow. And what my main fight, and what I've just written in my newsletter, is how many people are just not responding to their intuition. Like, the amount of people I've spoken to over the past 2 years who told me openly and enthusiastically, well, my intuition says no, but I've got to do it for the greater good. And I'm like, what? That's just madness. Like, that refusal to take control and just be like, oh, I've got to do what the government say. I mean, nah.
Not having that. We're not having that. And I might be open to dating Scorpios just in case anybody has got.
Good, bringing it back. Bring it back.
So what was it like you were on a TV show last year called Written for the Stars, where you were pairing up people that you thought had a good chance of making it. And I'm curious about your own personal experience, actually, on that show. Did you enjoy it? How did it feel putting yourself out there as the person who might be able to orchestrate true love?
Good question. You're good at questions. How did it feel? Honestly, it was one of those things. It wasn't fully present in it because I was just like, is this going to happen? There were so many, are we going to get the show? Is it going to be approved? Are they going to get budget? So I never really fully was present with it. And then it was just like, fast, let's go. And the whole experience was just mad, like being the talent on a TV show and everybody like holding umbrellas over our heads and all of that was mad. And then the pairing of the couples who, they said, oh, the astrologers said this is your perfect match. We never said that. So
right, okay.
And so that was, it was it was very much pitched as this is an astrological experiment. But the idea of perfect, like one perfect match, we have matches, we have compatibility. I truly, truly believe in compatibility, and that there is a massive argument for that. But caveat, if A and B are compatible potentially, but has A got any self-awareness? I don't know. Yes. A has to be self-aware to be compatible with anyone.
Yes,
it's the nature nurture. It's always the nature nurture. So yeah, it was mind blowing to have spent months going over these charts and like hypothetically understanding how these relationships might go, and then to meet these people and they all did exactly what we thought they would. Like they all behaved. They were all who we thought they were. So from that respect, it was really rewarding to like see and participate and be part of something that, putting astrology to the test was so gratifying, and also to see how well everybody responded to the astrology, particularly the boys, which is slightly sexist, but still, girls tend to be more into it than boys. But the boys, because they could see it working and they could see the astrology playing out, in all these new friends that they'd met in the villa, they were very curious. And that was really like exciting for us as astrologers who, people are skeptical of astrology.
Oh, see, now I'm really curious. I'm like, do me. One of those annoying people. Can you read my palm? Can you tell me, what does real astrology mean versus just
real astrology
normal astrology? Because I was reading,
There's a slight delay, isn't there? Go on, finish your question.
Go on. No, I was just saying that I was reading that your mission is to get real astrology out there. And I'm like, what does that mean versus not real? Yeah.
I guess I need to update that. But that's because when I started, astrology was, hi, I'm a Sagittarius. And that was it. And people were very dismissive of, there's more than 12 types of people in the world. And because of that, and because of horoscopes and Mystic Meg and all the rest of it, it was immediately dismissed. Real astrology is planets, all the planets, the Venus and the Mars and the Saturn and your rising sign and the aspects between the planets. So the mathematical, like, Venus is 60 degrees from Mars, and that means they're very, compatible. So real astrology is the detail, the fact that every single birth chart is utterly unique. Utterly.
When you talk about it, there is, I mean, would you say that you're obsessed by astrology?
Do you know what? I always did. And then my friend Kim, who's a professional astrologer, was writing a PhD on the language women use surrounding astrology, and how if astrology was was engineering and men were really into it, you'd be like, oh, they're passionate and or whatever. But because it's astrology and it's like girly magazine thing, that the word obsessed is used and she says it demeans it. So now I'm always wary of saying obsessed, because she was like, feminist issue. But basically, yes.
I mean, obsessed is my word. Like, if I like it, I'm obsessed. And what I hear is you saying, like, the detail is interesting. I suppose I want to ask you, what is it that you love about it? What is it that is so juicy for you specifically?
I think having myself explained. I always saw the patterns, I remember everybody's birthday. I dated 2 Scorpios when I was 19. I had a type. I was always bothered by it. I could see that it worked. I could see that people with the same birthday had something in common. But then I had loads of unanswered questions, loads and loads and loads. And then when I started getting into the nuance, I was like, wow, wow, I've got a language to explain why. The big thing for me, which a lot of people will understand, even with very basic astrology, is my moon sign. So my moon is who I am as a woman. It's who I am deep, deep down. My basic emotional needs is Taurus. It's very fixed, doesn't like change. And my sun sign is Sagittarius, so I love to travel and go away. So I was always booking trips and then being like, I can't go, like terrified of change. And it was a big problem for me being like this, because I couldn't go and live abroad because I'd be homesick, but being at home drives me mad. I want to go. And a lot of people can relate to that, but I was an extreme case. And then my astrology explains it, and then all the little details in my life and all the timing of your life. Again, if we're going to come to fate, because then you read the transits, the current movements, the current celestial patterns pick up your own birth chart. And I can work out what time somebody was born by retrofitting it, by asking enough questions that I can see when the transits happened, and I can work out what time they were born. The science and the beauty of it.
No, carry on. The science and the beauty of it.
I'm waiting for the delay.
I'm going to use the word obsessed. I am a feminist, and I'm going to still use the word. I'm obsessed with this because I question the time of birth that I have been given, because often when I do the human design thing or any of my astrology, there's stuff that doesn't quite sit. Now, this is not that weird, because maybe it's ridiculous to think that I'm ever going to have a reading and everything be perfect, everything resonate. But I do question my time of birth. So I feel like we need to chat. I admitted this the other day for the first time publicly, and now it seems like I can't help but talk about it all of the time. My younger 2 children, I don't know their times of birth. I know them roughly, but I feel like I really would love to be able to say, to give them, like, this is the time that you were born. So we need to talk about that as well.
Okay. You don't know. Oh my God. I was like, when I was born, the first thing my mum did was look at the clock, which I love.
Yeah. Well, I know that I did do that, and I know that their birth books, I've lost their birth books. That's what it is. And I had them both at home. So there was I think that it was just a
Cool.
more, yeah, it was just a more kind of chilled out experience. And then the birth books went, and here we are. I will be accused of being a very bad mother for the rest of my life as soon as they find out when they want to get whatever reading done. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it was kind of around this time.
Work it out.
So
Work it out.
I am curious, how much do you plan your own life out based on what is going on in your chart? Is this something that obviously you do the weekly astrology on your podcast. How much are you looking specifics for you?
Yeah, it's good good question again, because I didn't used to really always know what was going on. The podcast is making me better because now I'm always looking. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But at the minute, I've got such huge astrology. This year is huge, and it is scary. Like it is scary. And the dog died, and my niece was born within 2 weeks, and I'd seen birth and death, and you're just like, what the, and but. Like with all spiritual work, a rebirth can be anything. Well, not anything, but anything intense, and or a new job, or a completely new identity, or like my sister having a baby is huge for the family line. But at the minute, how much do I live by it? Yes, I do, but also a lot of it's accidental, in as much as I'm not always paying attention, and then I see that something's happened, and I'm like, whoa. And then currently at the minute, like moving out of my flat, I've been talking about leaving London and moving for years and years and years. It's remarkable that I'm doing it with Uranus opposing my Saturn. Because I can't believe it. So yes, I'm living by it, but I'm also just going with my intuition, which is what, all astrology does, in a way, is tell you what you've kind of felt, which is why it's kind of validating if you're not that connected to your intuition, and it helps you get back online, because it's just all the things that you already knew, in a way.
You have mentioned intuition a lot, and I know that outside of astrology, you've done a lot of psychic studies, and I'm curious, do you have any tips for the audience on how they can better tune into their intuition?
You're the queen of questions. I would say, so for me, it was really cutting down my drinking. When I got to 29, 30, that was mainly for my mood. But like cutting down drinking, going to yoga. I've been journaling every day since I was 15. I got a whole library under my bed. So I was always quite tuned in a way. I've always been like, if everyone was going out and I didn't feel it, I'd go home. And so I've always had a strong pull to what is right for me. And I think that is because I spent a lot of time alone, really. And that for me, that's what worked, is knowing what it feels like when I've ignored my intuition, knowing what that gut pull, knowing what it is. And then I check things with the tarot a lot. I do that. And I will often check the transits of the astrology, which, to be honest, sometimes is a bit too heady. I think for me, it's just listening to the inner knowing and learning, like a baby, learning the hard way, what happens when you ignore it. What would you say? What do you do?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yay. When it comes to intuition for me, I think that there's still a part of me, if I'm really honest, there's still a part of me that questions it. However, it's like, am I really allowed to know? It's that, like, am I, like, really, Suze? But it's a feeling. It's a feeling that I have in my body. It is like, so for example, my like this brand, the Infinite Receiving brand, is something that a friend had worked with years ago. And then she said, do you want to buy the IP from me? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I sat with it for months and months and months. It was like, what is this supposed to be for me? And it was very different experience from anything else I've ever created or anything else I've ever launched. It's always been like, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. With this, it was like, you need to wait. You need to pause. I'm like, that's weird. Like, what do you mean I need to pause? Who's telling me that I need to pause? Like, whoa. But it was so clear. And then it wasn't until I went to Costa Rica, which it was like a leadership retreat, but there was plant medicine and just, it was really a beautiful experience. But like one day after one of the ceremonies, like the pillars were there. It was like, it's infinite greatness, it's infinite love, it's infinite support, and it's infinite co-creation. Like that is what infinite receiving is. And it was just there. And there was no part of my body was in resistance.
No resistance,
and so I suppose that's the sign for me. But the thing is that, like I said, this experience with this is quite unique. Usually my mind, you've got to catch that alignment, because the mind wants to come in very quickly and start to question. And then as soon as the questioning comes in, there can be contraction, and then we start to doubt. So what you said about being quiet and creating space, that's very helpful for me. That when there's less noise, I can feel the alignment in my body more quickly. And then even if the mind comes in afterwards, I'm like, okay, this is how we move forward. So it's spaciousness, I think, and then feeling the alignment.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, the worst thing is asking loads of people their opinion. I know I'm really off track if I'm on the phone being like, what do I do? Because then I'm just going to go into tailspin, like, woo. And also the thing with intuition is we can all offer advice on how to get there, but I don't think it's the same for all of us. And I don't think we all have the same. It's like being an artist. Like, we can all paint, but some of us have a talent. And it's, some people are so intuitive that they can speak to beings and, full psychic mediumship. Yes. There's such a, because when I first met Sanit, the psychic, who told me I was going to be an astrologer, I was like, how did you know all this stuff about me? And she was like, oh, it's just intuition. I was like, what do you mean? It's so, like, your intuition is mental. Like, you get names, whereas I just get guidance. But I think my intuition, and probably all of us, is going to get a lot better over the next 10, 20 years. I think we're all going to get a lot more psychic.
Do you think that it's just intention? There's a big part of me that just thinks that if I commit to noticing more. So one of the things that I play around with is which way I should go to pick up, like, my kids from school. And sometimes I will get the hit to be like, use the motorway, and other times it'll be use the back road. And 8 times out of 10, when I get the hit to use the motorway, but I use the back road, I've overridden the first instinct, I always regret it. And so that for me is a really fun way just to play with the first voice, the first nudge, the first feeling.
Yes, that's brilliant. That's exactly what I mean. Like, those mistakes, going out on the nights out, that was my first lesson. Like, when I was 15, 16, because I'd always have to get a taxi, so it was like a big deal, I never wanted to I never wanted to get it wrong. And it's like on the nights where your body's like, stay in, and then you go out, and then you're like, why am I here? I hated that. But that's how you learn what the yes feeling and the no feeling. Before a good night out, I'd always be shaking with excitement. But yes, mate, but is it intention? I partly, perhaps.
There's a theme here. And the theme is
we don't know,
maybe kind of yes and no.
Well, I do sit on the fence a little bit.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on, you sit on the fence a little bit.
I sit on the fence a little bit because partly perhaps because I'm like rising Gemini and I live in a world of possibility, and because I do change my mind on things sometimes. Like, you learn more and then you change your mind. So I'm always aware that as I get older and learn more, I'm going to change my mind. And
Yes.
that even if I'm 80% sure about how things are, there's still a possibility for sometimes it to be different. But
Yeah.
like with the bigger questions of, is it intuition or is it intention? I think it's intuition, but intention also has a part to play. But it's different. It's different situations. It's like the best way to school is intuition because that's it. I think you can't change the traffic with your mind. I don't think.
Yeah.
Can you draw the traffic to you? No, your mind can tell you the best way to go. But intention is about, what you create. But your intentions are probably intuitively informed in the first place.
What's been like, this has been very present for me over the last maybe about the last month, is the releasing of expectation. Now, I have always used positive expectation to my advantage. Like, I expect good things to happen and then I notice good things happening. And at the same time, I also realize, particularly in business, is that when I have an expectation of how I think that things are going to play out, if it starts to look like things aren't going to play out the way that I expect, I immediately go into disappointment. And then from that energy of disappointment, even if I'm trying to rally the troops, it makes it more challenging for me to energetically get behind what it is that I'm doing. And so there's been this desire to release expectation and focus on intention. And with intention, my intention gets to be that, for example, with this interview, the intention is to have a conversation that feels rich and expansive. Now, within rich and expansive, which I don't know if these are quite the right words, but within rich and expansive, whatever the conversation is, whatever the answers are, I can still allow that intention to be fulfilled. Even if you were giving one-word answers and being like, okay, next, I can still create. I can still allow a gift to come through. That can still be rich and expansive for my development with that intention. Whereas if I go, I need Francesca to answer this, and this, otherwise it's going to be a failure. There's this expectation of what you need to be like in order for me to feel that the interview's been successful. And so that expectation isn't helpful, whereas the intention creates a lot more spaciousness. The intention is about the energy that I hold regardless of what is going on around me. Mm-hmm. That's been helpful. So I can intend to notice my intuition. I'm not sure. I'm playing around with it.
Sagittarius and Virgo is what I'm hearing.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm hearing a bit of
Should I tell you
Sagittarius.
when my birthday is?
Yeah.
It is the 19th of October.
What year?
And 1978.
44, so... Yeah.
Yeah, 45 this year. And apparently, I am double Scorpio. Now, I don't know what that also means. I don't know whether that is... I don't know what else that means.
What time were you born? Do you know?
We think it's 10 a.m. But I question that. I feel like my mum might have just given me that time to shut me up. But it's 10 a.m. on the dot, apparently.
She's giving you the Scorpio time. 10 a.m. on the dot. Okay. Okay, where's Jupiter? Jupiter in Leo. So yeah, that gives you Libra Sun, Moon in Gemini. So a lot of. It's your lunar return right now. That's nice. Born on a Thursday. We like that. Jupiter's day, expansive. But yeah, there's a lot of Scorpio. Rising Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, Venus Scorpio, Uranus Scorpio, Mercury Scorpio.
Wow.
So that's
wow.
That's more than double. But you've got a Saturn in Virgo. I can hear the Saturn in Virgo. Which bit? The Scorp.
What does that mean?
Okay, well, I'll explain. So when you're reading the birth chart, I was listening to a podcast this week, and I heard that there are 3,000 things you can see in a birth chart. So there's so many little nuances and things you can see. But first, you look for what's in bold and highlighted. And what's very clear here is you've got the sun and moon in air, so you're a communicator. You like groups, you like people, you are very interested in ideas, and that you've got the moon in Gemini. That's why you're good at asking questions. You are, you're intellectually curious, and also your moon is bang on my ascendant. So I'm rising Gemini, your moon in Gemini, and that gives us a good connection. But it also means that we are comfortable living with either or, because that's what Gemini is here to do. Gemini is a true journalist, and journalism is being like, look, here's your newspaper article, here's 5 different possibilities. I'm not going to tell you what to think, as opposed to Sag, which is like, here's what to think. So you've got that going on. Okay. And then you're rising Scorpio with Venus. So Venus is how you value things, what you value, and you've got Venus and Mars together. So reading that is interesting, because Mars is how we go and get what we want. Venus is how we attract things to us. Having Mars and Venus together gives you a power of attraction, because you are putting energy into it. Scorpio is Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Scorpio makes shit happen. Scorpio is manifesting. Scorpio is like like that iron will. You know exactly where to stick the knife in. You know exactly where to put your energy and focus. Boom, done, seeded. And the same with your Mercury, your mind is focused. You have, Mercury rules Gemini. So yes, you've got some air here, but this isn't scattered. This isn't scattered. This is a very focused, laser, intuitive, cut through the bullshit, seeing through everything, scorpionic intensity. The Sagittarius that I heard was your optimism and like this belief, this intention, the desire. But it's not there. It's not there. You do have Neptune in Sag in your first house, which would make you a bit of a dreamer and you a bit of a visionary. But I think, again, having Jupiter rules Sagittarius. You have Jupiter in Leo, which is, queen, royal, it's regal, it's confident, it's in the 9th house. You like to teach, you like ideas, you like to travel. You have a real penchant for international things, ideas, curiosity. You teach, you learn, you teach, you learn, you teach, you're publishing. Jupiter in the 9th house is very strong because, it's not just signs, we're looking at houses. And Jupiter is in aspect to your Mercury, so that gives you this mind. But I can see where the despondency would kick in quite quickly, because you've not got loads of Jupiter, you've got more Scorpio. You got Scorpio and Virgo, so that will take. It's different than being out and out Jupiterian who's kind of Teflon. And also, I haven't got to Saturn in Virgo, but you've got your North Node in Virgo, your Saturn in Virgo, and your MC in Virgo. That's 3 things in Virgo. And all of you with Saturn in Virgo, it's a 2.5 year period, like 77, 78, 79. Virgo is just very meticulous, organised, but hard on themselves. Sees problems, sees problems, and as well, I think a lot of what you were talking about control earlier is Virgo stuff. I don't have any Virgo in my chart, but I'm surrounded by Virgos. My sister's got Virgo, everything. My mum and dad have got a lot of Virgo. So they're controlled. The house is immaculate. They are so controlled. I'm not controlled. I'm just I don't have that in me. But Virgo does. And I'd say that's, unlearning that micromanaging thing is really important. But also, you're very good at it.
This is so, yes. I'm like, this is wild. There's so much in there. You're like, okay, yeah, well, this is kind of what we do here. Yeah. I think I need to have a full reading with you.
Yeah, we need to do it. And I mean, it's a very nice, I like, because you've got Mars and Venus literally rising, that it would soften up. I think the Venus rising gives you that Venusian charm. You're a Libra anyway. It adds to being more of a people person than a classic Scorpio, like. But still, the way you read the room is Scorpionic.
Oh, this is so interesting. Where do people go? If people, like, the way that obviously you can get a full birth chart done, but if you're not quite there in terms of getting a birth chart, where do you recommend people go for, like, real astrology so they can actually understand a little bit more about themselves?
What I spent all of my 20s doing was going on cafe astrology. And other astrologers always laugh at me for that. But I love cafe astrology because it gives you, if you go in and put in birth chart calculator, you get pages and pages and pages of. So if you went on cafe astrology, you would get all your stuff. You'd get that you're a Libra, you'd get moon in Gemini, and then you'd get a paragraph on what moon in Gemini is. Then you'd get a paragraph on what moon in the 7th is. And when it got to Jupiter, you'd get Jupiter in Leo, but then you get Jupiter in the 9th. And that Jupiter in the 9th would really speak to you. And you'd get Mars conjunct Venus, and you'd read about it, and you'd be like. So, yeah, I think as a beginner, I devoured cafe astrology. Otherwise, astro.com you get your chart, but it means nothing. You need all the words.
This is super helpful. We will obviously link to all of this in the show notes. I, unfortunately, have got to bring this interview to a close. There's so many more things I want to speak to you about. I feel like for sure we should do a part 2 where I can maybe not monopolise the interview so it's all about me, but ask you some of the other things that I would... thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. Can you tell everybody, where can they find your brilliance?
Oh, that's kind. So where can they find me? Francesca Oddie Astrology, basically. That's it. So, and also my website is francescaoddie.com. That's Francesca Oddie. Francesca Oddie or Francesca Oddie Astrology. I was going to drop the astrology because I do more than astrology, but it's easy, isn't it? Francesca Oddie Astrology. Instagrams, your threads.
For now.
What do we call threads? Threading. I did a tweet.
We call them threads. Well,
yeah, but you know how you say
I
tweeted? With threading. Threading.
I threaded. Okay. I think it's threaded.
I threaded.
Which I need to follow you on Threads. I need more Francesca Oddie in my life, but I feel like the behind the scenes. I want like the unfiltered version. It has been a joy. If you've loved this episode as much as I have, please can you do me a favor and tag Francesca, tag me, send us DMs, share it with your friends. Like, let's get the message of real astrology out there and send lots of people Francesca's way. And thank you so much once again, Francesca. And for you, gorgeous listeners, please remember that faith plus action equals miracles. Love ya. Thank you for listening to Infinite Receiving with me, Susie Ashworth. I'd love to share with you my Infinite Receiving activation audio. Go to susieashworth.com/activate infinite receiving.